Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We have a big show for you today. We had huge blockbuster trade in the NFL. One of them being Stefon Diggs traded to the Texans for a second. The Texans also got a fifth and a sixth out of this. Wild, crazy news to wake up to this morning. On top of that, we'll talk about some huge performances last night, a major matchup between Victor Wembenyama, the future of the NBA, and the reigning reigning world champion Denver Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic, and that matchup was incredible last night. We'll talk about all of that in segment 2. Joel Embiid made his triumphant return to the starting lineup against the Thunder. He played in some game action. We'll break down his performance as well as what that might mean for the Sixers as they try to get better seeding in their little playoff push at the end of the season. And we'll close out our show with some news. There was a ban officially for prop bets on college players in the state of Louisiana. So we will talk about that, the stuff going on around there, and maybe a little bit of baseball while we're at it as well. But before we get into it, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say. You can control the show. If you leave a tip or donation, we'll talk about whatever you are curious about, a burning question. I will answer your questions. We will have a little discussion about what you had to say. Once again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show with the big news of the day. Bills Pro Bowl wide receiver, most likely a future Hall of Famer if he continues on the track that he is on, Stefon Diggs, traded to the Texans. This is the second time in his career that he's been traded. He was traded to the Bills from the Vikings about 4 years ago in their original trade. You take a look at what the compensation in this trade, it's not quite as much as a lot of people would have expected. It was a second-round pick going to the Bills in exchange for Stefon Diggs, a fifth and a sixth. So when you combine those two trades together with the Texans trade with the Vikings, and the Texans trade with the Bills now to get Stefon Diggs, you combine them, they have basically gone down 20 spots. They've gone down 19 spots in the draft from 23 to 47, from 23 to 42, and gotten Stefon Diggs. That is masterful work. Masterful work by the Houston Texans front office. This move vaults them, I think, to Super Bowl contenders. You know, you obviously play in a division with some solid teams. You know, the Jaguars kind of collapsed at the end of the season, but they're very good. The Colts, under Anthony Richardson, we're not 100% sure about what they'll be, but they have the ability to be a very good team. And the Titans have had a really, really great offseason. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, actually. But talking about Stefon Diggs and exactly what he's going to do to the Texans, he's been so successful everywhere he's gone. You know, he went to the Bills and immediately they took that next step. You know, C.J. Stroud already has those weapons. He already had Nico Collins. He already had Tank Dell. These two guys that were incredible wide receivers, and now they add Stefon Diggs to that list. That might be the best receiving core in all of football. They have to go. It's a tough AFC. You know, you have to go toe-to-toe with people like Patrick Mahomes. You have to go toe-to-toe with reigning MVP Lamar Jackson, with Justin Herbert. I mean, the Chargers are kind of a mess, but Justin Herbert is still in there. I just went through that entire AFC South division that the Texans are in. Not even to mention Josh Allen, who you just got him from. Josh Allen and the Bills, the Dolphins. It's going to be a bloodbath. The Jets with Aaron Rodgers. The AFC is going to be a bloodbath this year, but I'm really, really excited by the direction the Texans are taking. You know, They go from just last year a team that had the number 2 overall pick to now Super Bowl contenders in one season. That is insane. That never happens. CJ Stroud has come out of nowhere to really become this elite quarterback. People thought he'd be good, but elite is the level that he's playing right now. I don't think I saw a single person predict that. In a stacked AFC, I love that the Texans are building right now. They traded for Joe Mixon. They locked in Dalton Schultz on a nice deal. Got some solid offensive linemen. They are making the most of what they can with the flexible cap that they have. Because in 4 years' time, they're going to have to back up the Brinks trucks and pay C.J. Stroud. They need to win before they have to pay C.J. Stroud. Now, it's not impossible to win after you pay a quarterback. Mahomes has been paid, and they've just won 2 in a row. There's plenty of other examples of quarterbacks getting paid and then winning. But it's a lot harder. And you run into some cap issues like the Chiefs are running into right now. So the Texans can build around this while they have the cap luxury of having all this space, not taken up by one contract by the quarterback. And I love that they're going all in. I love that they're not sitting on their hands and being like, oh, we had a surprisingly great season last year. Let's just sit here and be the same. I love that they're going out and making these big moves, making these improvements. The Texans have now definitely become my favorite to win that division. Before, I think it was a little bit of a toss-up. I think they've staked their claim as top of that AFC South, the team to beat there. And they already won a playoff game last year with C.J. Stroud. So there's no reason not to believe that the Texans adding Stefon Diggs and really just generally improving this entire offseason, there's no reason to believe why they can't be Super Bowl contenders. You go look at the other side of the coin, though, the Bills. And I understand, to a certain extent, why they made this trade, right? There's been drama brewing forever from Stefon Diggs. At the beginning of last season, it was rumored that he wanted out, he was going to hold out, and all that saga. It ended up being nothing. He ended up coming and playing. It was swept under the rug. But there was tension between him and Josh Allen last season, and I don't remember exactly what it is. I think there were rumors saying something about a girl between them. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but there was tension, there was drama, and they needed him out of the building. On top of that, the Bills this offseason have really started to struggle with the cap. This is what happens when you pay Josh Allen billions of dollars. You have to start cutting everywhere else, and they made a lot of sacrifices on the defense. They cut most of their defensive stars. They cut Tre'Davious White, they cut Jordan Poyer, they let Micah Hyde walk. These guys were kind of the face of your defense. They were injured, they're a little bit older, and I understand the moves. They're getting paid a lot of money, but you kind of cut out the heart of that team this offseason. And I know you still have Josh Allen, but the heart of that Bills team is really missing. It's not the same team that people were looking at as the team that, they can just beat the Chiefs, they'll win the Super Bowl. This Bills team has been unable to make it past that threshold, and they're not taking a step forward. Other teams in the AFC are taking steps forward. The Jets are taking big steps forward. The Dolphins are kind of staying in place, but there are there's a lot of stuff going on in Buffalo, and there hasn't really been too many positives this offseason. You would have loved to get more from Stefon Diggs. Now, I don't know exactly what the market was for him, but I'm sure you could have gotten a second and a fourth, or, maybe just for a second you didn't have to give up a fifth and a sixth as well. It just seems a little rushed. And it probably has something to do with the drama. They wanted him out. There's been rumors that he wanted out forever. That's just how Stefon Diggs is. And you can talk about that as a negative for the Texans, this young team, bringing in a veteran that doesn't have the greatest reputation in a locker room. I'm not going to say he's a locker room cancer because he always goes through this honeymoon phase when he breaks out and then he gets a little angry and then he gets traded. But that's all they need him for. They only need him for that honeymoon phase. There are dangers there. There's a reason that Buffalo traded him for a bag of chips. They got caught up in his drama, and that's not something that I tend to evaluate players on. Situations are situational, stuff happens in interpersonal relationship, just because I get in a fight with a certain guy doesn't mean I'm going to fight everyone, and maybe I had good reasons, maybe they had good reasons, whatever. I'm not there in the locker room. I don't know exactly what transpired. None of that's been confirmed, but we do know that it kind of wasn't the greatest situation for the Bills, for Stefon Diggs, all of last season. It just kind of didn't work out. So they had to get rid of him. They had to move on. The Bills have not had a very good offseason. They have replaced their kind of solid receiving core of Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis with Curtis Samuel. They still have Khalil Shakir, who really broke onto the scene last season. But is he going to be enough? I'm not entirely sure. I already mentioned all the defensive losses. It's not really a good look for the Bills, especially in a tough division like the AFC East. They didn't win the division last year. And they have to go up against the Dolphins and the Jets this year instead of just the Dolphins. It's going to be a little tough. And I'm not super convinced that they're going to make the playoffs this season. We'll have to stay tuned, take a look. But overall grade for this trade, I think Texans get an A. You bring in an elite wide receiver. He's only 30 years old, which is a little bit older for football players, but he's still got at least a couple years left before you have to really start worrying about his production. I know he had a down year last season, and it wasn't Stefon Diggs-like, but like I was saying before, there is a lot of stuff we don't know about that situation. So I'm giving the Texans an A. I'm giving the Bills a D. I understand you had to get rid of him, but you should have gotten more for him. Maybe a C minus. Maybe a D is a little harsh. A C minus there, but it's not a good look for the Bills. The Bills are kind of floundering. I think the Texans absolutely fleeced them. Not a very good trade. Plenty of stuff to work on. I don't think the Bills are going to be bad. Like I said, they have Josh Allen. He's the second best quarterback in the league. He'll make something work. I know he will. You have James Cook, who I think is a really solid running back. The offensive line is still relatively together. They've got a lot of holes now, but they know where they're targeting. It seems a little more obvious now where they're going to target in the draft, or how they're going to continue to improve. So I'm not too high on the Bills this season, but I do believe that they should be able to fight for that 7th playoff spot in the AFC. One we saw the Steelers get last season. I think the Bills are still better than the Steelers were last season. So there's no reason why they can't make a wild card, but I think the division is out of the cards for them now. But anyway, blockbuster trade. Stefon Diggs goes to the Texans. That's a huge move for them and C.J. Stroud. I'm very excited to see how they're going to split targets in Houston between Stroud, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins. Between Stefon Diggs, Tank Dell and Nico Collins. Because those are three guys that deserve the ball. All three of them. And also Joe Mixon. All of those guys deserve to have the football in their hands. So I'm interested to see exactly how the production is going to be split between those three guys. But that's more fantasy football stuff. We will get into that in September, months from now. Maybe a little bit in August. But anyway, coming up in our second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about Victor Wembenyama, the future of the NBA. He took on Nikola Jokic last night in an incredible matchup between the two of them. Victor Wembenyama is a special player. We'll break down his performance, what it means for the future of the NBA, and more coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the massive blockbuster trade between the Bills and the Texans that sent Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans in exchange for a second-round pick. Crazy trade there. Go back and watch that segment if you want to hear my thoughts. In this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about basketball. Victor Wembenyama, the rookie sensation, the French freak over there, he went off against the Nuggets in a huge matchup versus the potential number one seed in the West, the Spurs, who are already eliminated. This is more, all their games are more, hey, let's see what this kid can do. And Victor Wembenyama is playing with the best of them. It's scary to think. It's crazy to even think about how far he's come from the beginning of the season till now. If you remember, he was just kind of okay at the beginning of the season, and now he's looking world-class, like that number one overall pick that everyone was touting him to be. Greatest ever, potential to be the GOAT. He is there. I see it. And everyone else does as well. Victor Wembenyama is here, and he's going to be up there sooner than we think. He's already a top 10 player in the league. It's insane. But before we get further into this matchup, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation with a message. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen. We'll have a little discussion about what you have to say. You can control the show. You can control what questions are answered. All you have to do is leave a tip or donation at gsmcpodcast.net. Once again, that link is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, Victor Wembenyama versus Nikola Jokic. The present versus the future. You can say that a lot of people are the present of the NBA, but I think you'd be wrong if you said it wasn't Jokic. Jokic, who has won 2 of the last 3 MVPs, he's coming off winning an NBA championship. Jokic, who most likely, barring anything crazy happening, is going to win MVP this year. So third time in 4 years that he would have won MVP. And now there's this kid from France, Victor Wembenyama, putting up stat lines that we've never seen before. There's this Twitter account that I saw that was tracking unique stat lines that Victor Wembenyama has put up. And he's already put up 7 of them this season. He's already put up 7 unique stat lines from the entire history of the NBA. Victor Wembenyama has. It is crazy. He almost had a quadruple-double last night. That just doesn't happen. He had 23 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, and 9 blocks. 9 blocks, 8 assists, 15 rebounds, and 23 points is some 2K my player stat lines. That's not supposed to be a real thing. There's a world where Victor Wembenyama puts up a quadruple-double. Puts up points, assists, rebounds, blocks, steals. All in double digits. Sorry, not a quadruple-double. That's going to happen next season. Maybe even this season. He was 2 assists and 1 block away from a quadruple-double. I don't even know what you would call it. A sync-tuple double? Five things? That is insane to think about, and it's not even that crazy that I'm saying this. He is changing the game of basketball just because of how big he is and how he's able to play like a guard at his size. He's able to shoot from deep. He's able to stretch the floor. He is 7'5" and able to do these things. It is crazy. We have never seen a guy like him in basketball before, at least not with the skill set he has or the it's just insane. What he's done this season as a rookie to be top 10 in the league is not normal. You're not supposed to be that good right away. You're supposed to have to adjust, and he did. It took him some time, but the rate that he is improving, it's constant. Even this last performance last night from a month ago. And he was balling a month ago. Victor Wembenyama was. He was killing it out there. He had arrived a month ago. He had officially taken over the Rookie of the Year race. But he puts this up tonight against Nikola Jokic. Not an easy matchup by any stretch of the imagination. Still in a losing effort. But what he does out there on the court, he is always the center of attention. He just does everything. It's going to be so hard to figure out how to beat him. And he's only getting better. And it's not one of those things where he's slowly getting better. It's almost exponential improvement from the beginning of the season. He figured out the NBA so fast. It makes it look easy, and I know it isn't. Professional basketball is one of the hardest sports to play at the highest level just because of how little spots there are. All these guys are amazing. But Victor Wembenyama makes them look makes some of them look like rec players, just because of how he is. He is a very special talent, and maybe this time next year we're talking about him as the best player in the league. I don't think that's too far-fetched. I don't think it's too hard to believe that 1 year from now he is in conversation for best player in the league, and I think some people already are putting him in there. The Spurs get some help around him, and they're going to pick pretty high in this draft. There isn't a Victor Wembenyama style prize, but you get a really solid point guard with him. You go get someone who can facilitate, can pass, get Victor Wembenyama the ball more often. He's going to start putting up some scary numbers. Not that he isn't already, but his monster numbers now, we're just going to get used to them. It's very hard to picture the future of the NBA, and Victor Wembenyama is not the center of it. It's all coming together for him. This is his league, and he will be the face of the league. It will be his league in the next 2 seasons maximum. he is very special. He's such a special talent, and he really showed that against the defending champion Nuggets. Just an insane stat line. Almost a quadruple-double. And this isn't the first time we've seen that from him. He does this stuff like once a week. It's scary. It's scary how good Victor Wembenyama really is. But the Nuggets are still able to get the win there. The Nuggets move to first place in the West. They overtake the Thunder there. They're up half a game on them. It's a tight race up top. This was a big win for them, and it wasn't supposed to be this hard. But when Victor Wembenyama is playing like he is right now, there's no such thing as an easy win. He's going to make it tough. Offense, defense, he's so disruptive. But anyway, in our next segment coming up, we're going to stay in the NBA. We're going to talk a little bit about Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid made his return against the Thunder, who are also fighting for a top spot in the Western Conference. The Philadelphia 76ers are fighting to get out of the play-in. They are very close to that 6 seed line, and Joel Embiid is hopefully going to bring him in, or they're hoping that Joel Embiid is going to come in and push them over the top, push them to that out of that play-in, push them into the playoffs. We'll have to see how this goes. There are like 5 games left in the NBA season. We're going to talk about Joel Embiid, what he did last night, what it means for the Sixers season, and more. Coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about Victor Wembenyama, his electric performance against the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets and the best player in the world right now, Nikola Jokic, putting up nearly a quadruple-double on a night that they lose, but it's the talent that he flashes to be the best in the league. That really was my takeaway from that game. In segment 1, we talked about the big news of the day. Blockbuster trade in the NFL. Stefon Diggs moving from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans with a 5th and a 6th round pick in exchange for a 2nd round pick. The Texans absolutely got a steal of a deal there. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that on the Bills side, trying to clear out some drama in the locker room. There was a lot of that between Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen, so maybe this will help them get better, but I'm not too convinced about that. In this segment, this third segment here, we are going to talk a little bit about Joel Embiid. He made his return from the torn meniscus last night against the Thunder, leading the 76ers to a win, a 4-point win. We'll talk about what this means for the Thunder, for the playoffs, for the Sixers as well as any other things that have to do with Joel Embiid here. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation. Once you do that, a message will, if you leave a message, it'll pop up on the bottom of the screen. We'll have a little discussion about what you said. That's right, you can control what we're talking about on the show. You ask a question, we'll answer it. All you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net and leave a question with a donation. We appreciate anything that you do give. Once again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we're going to talk a little bit about Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid and his return to the 76ers lineup. He leads them to a 109-105 win against the fighting for the number 1 overall seed OKC Thunder. The Thunder, who are half a game behind Denver. They've clinched a playoff spot. The East, the part that the 76ers are fighting in is to get out of the play-ins. The 76ers are currently the 8th seed. They are a game and a half back of the Miami Heat, and they're 2 games back of the Pacers at 6. The Pacers right now hold that last playoff spot, and with Joel Embiid coming back, it kind of signals that the Sixers are going to do as much as they can to get out of those play-ins. I don't think they should be too worried about it, honestly. But they're trying to get out of those play-ins. They have 6 games left to do that. The Heat and the Pacers are the teams that they need to pass to get up there. And having Joel Embiid back is going to be a huge part of that. Having a guy like Joel Embiid who, for the first time coming back from injury, puts up 24, 6, and 7 to go with 3 steals. He played a really good game of basketball, coming off an injury that, it's not easy to rehab. Joel Embiid was talking about how much this injury sucked. He was saying stuff like it was depressing, super disappointing. And he's back. He loves basketball. He wants to win. He wanted to be back, so he came back. We talked a little bit about if he should come back before the playoffs a couple days ago. It boiled down to it's up to Joel Embiid because the Sixers have no leverage. But if they did, I'd wait until the playoffs start. But he's back. He's going to try and make a run. I don't know how much of a difference it's really going to make. It's not that the Sixers are so far off of the Pacers or so far off of the Heat that they can't do this. They could conceivably get all the way up to the 4th seed, technically. They're only 3.5 games back of the Orlando Magic and the Knicks, who are tied for that 4 seed right now. They're only 3.5 games back. If they win and those other teams lose, there's no reasons why they can't make that up. It's not an impossible gap. You look at their schedule, they play the Heat next. That's tomorrow. That's going to be a game that's going to change the tides of that. After that, they have Victor Wembenyama and the Spurs, who we just finished talking about. Not an easy matchup. But then they have the Pistons, the Magic, who they're trying to catch, presumably, and the Nets. So they have 2 big games at the bottom here. They've got 2 games that are really going to make a difference in these playoffs. They can basically catch up to the Heat on Thursday, depending on what the Pacers do. And then they have the Magic, who they might be able to get to the 4. So having Joel Embiid back, it's not a bad decision, right? It's just out of an abundance of caution. Sometimes you'd like to have your guy be 100% healthy. Or maybe sometimes you'd like to have your guy who has a history of injuries kind of take it easy. But Joel Embiid kind of is holding Philly hostage in this situation. He comes back. He had a really, really solid game. Very happy for him that he's healthy. Happy that he's back in a good mental state, because he was saying that that injury really got to him. So, but the fact that he did play was a little interesting, because less than 10 hours to the game, I saw something saying that he most likely was not going to play. He was most likely going to be listed as out for the game. But instead, the Sixers play him. He's such a big deal between for the Sixers when you have your top 5 player in the league guy out there. They're 27-8 this season when Joel Embiid plays. They're just 14-27 when he doesn't play. Joel Embiid is the engine that makes the Sixers go, and the one sad thing is I just don't see them as being good enough to really make a deep run in these playoffs. I know the Eastern Conference isn't particularly strong, but you have teams like the Celtics, who the Sixers can't beat even with Joel Embiid. You have the Bucks, Cleveland even I think is not a great matchup for them. If they can't get out of the play-ins, it's not going to be a long tournament, and even so, I don't see them getting past the semifinals, the Eastern semis. It's just not something that seems like it's in the card for this team. This team has always struggled to get out of the semis, and I know they brought in shooting, a guy like Buddy Hield, who I do really love that pickup for them. I think that's something that they needed desperately, be able to space the floor. Tyrese Maxey is having an amazing season, and having Joel Embiid with his gravity, his gravitational pull, leaving those shooters open, it should be huge. It really should be. The East, while it's not super strong, you have a lot of really good teams in there that are going to be tough for the Sixers to compete against. The Bucks don't have that great a defense, but they do have a prolific 1-2 punch in Giannis and Dame. The Celtics are just an elite basketball team right now. Cleveland is really solid defense. The Knicks as well. It's going to be a tough matchup, whoever they draw, really. The Sixers are kind of stuck in that middle of the pack. Even with Joel Embiid, I think they're still in that kind of middle of the pack area in terms of Eastern Conference contenders. They're kind of they're on the upper echelon of that. But they are in that group with Cleveland, Orlando, New York, and the Heat even. So the Heat and the Sixers, I believe, are at the top of that tier, but you look at the standings, they're at the bottom of all of that. A lot of stuff goes into that, of course, but right now, I think that the Sixers are a top 4 team in the East, but I don't think they're anything more than that, even with Joel Embiid. It's going to be really tough. Joel Embiid wants to see winning, and he wants to win. I feel that. Philly needs to show that they can win. Philly needs to make a big make something prove something to Joel Embiid that he's not wasting his career in Philly. And I like some of the moves that they've made, but having Joel Embiid back is huge for the Sixers. I think with him back, they might be able to. I think they'll be able to get out of that play-in. We just went through their schedule. It's not the toughest schedule in the world, Do I think they'll get as high as 4? No. But do I think they can get to 6? Absolutely. I think they can absolutely jump the Pacers. The Pacers have, not the easiest schedule down the road. They play the Nets, kind of a mid-level game. Thunder is going to be tough. The Heat's going to be tough. The Raptors, not that bad. The Cavs, once again, that's going to be a huge game for seeding. And then the Hawks. So it's not an easy schedule for the Pacers down the stretch. The Pacers they're a good team. They are, but the Sixers have an easier schedule, and they have the better player in Joel Embiid. So I think they can absolutely catch them. My prediction is the Sixers will end up at that number 6 seed in the East with Joel Embiid back now, which is pretty good. You don't have to participate in the play-in. You are a playoff team. You don't have to worry about all that, but that would have them play the 3 seed, which, if the season ended today, would be Cleveland. Not awful, not great. I think that'd be a fun matchup. I think Joel Embiid versus Jared Allen down low would be fun. I'm not sure how the outside matches up for the 76ers when talking about the guard play of the Cavs, but down low I think they have the advantage, definitely. That would be a fun series to watch. But yeah, that's where we kind of stand with the Joel Embiid Philadelphia 76ers issue. There's a lot going on there, but they do need this if they want to make that playoff push, and that seems like the route they're going to take. So I think they made the right decision bringing him back in. In our next segment coming up, we are going to transition out of basketball, talk a little bit about college sports. There was an announcement today that said Louisiana would officially ban prop bets on all college athletics. We'll talk a little bit about that. That was in response to the situation in the NBA with Jonte Porter and the Raptors. So we'll take a look at all that and more coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the Sixers and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid made his return, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, nearly a triple-double in his return in a win against the Western Conference second seed, Oklahoma City Thunder. A huge game for the Thunder and for the Sixers, actually. The Thunder, who fall out of that number 1 seed, losing that game after the Nuggets beat Victor Wembenyama and the Spurs, who we talked about in segment number 2, Victor Wembenyama and his freakish game, his sky-high potential already starting to be realized. It's scary. He's going to be the king of that league, of the NBA, forever. He is just that good. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. We hope the best, because that's the only thing that can really slow him down at this point, it seems like. In our first segment, we talked about the big blockbuster trade of the day, the biggest news, Stefon Diggs being traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans in a deal that includes 2 fifths and a sixth. The Bills receive a second-round pick. The Texans now have one of the best receiving cores in all of football to pair with an elite young quarterback in CJ Stroud, pushing them to the upper echelons of the AFC. Definitely a huge move for them, an interesting move for Buffalo, one that's understandable when you get down to it, but still a very, very interesting move. In this fourth and final segment, though, we are going to talk about the new law that just got passed in Louisiana banning prop bets on all college athletics. How this might set a precedent, if it's a good idea, where this kind of stems from, because it stems from something we talked about earlier, about a week ago, I believe now. So we'll talk about all that, but before we get into it, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message. If you do that, a message will pop up on the bottom of the screen. Question, comment, concern, anything, we will talk about it. We'll have a little discussion. You can control what the content of this show is with your question. All you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net and leave a tip or donation. We appreciate everything that you do give. We appreciate you guys all for sticking around, tuning in, and watching. But once again, that link to leave a tip and donation is gsmcpodcast.net. Like I was saying, we are going to get into our fourth and final segment, which has to do with the prop betting ban. If you are unaware of the situation, haven't been paying too much attention to college sports, after the Jonte Porter situation, where the NBA center, Jonte Porter, for the Toronto Raptors, is currently under investigation for potentially gambling on himself, tossing over-unders for props, 3-point prop, will he shoot a three-pointer, yes or no? He wouldn't shoot a three-pointer, or he needed 7.5 points to hit the over, he bet the under, or someone he knew bet the under, and he got a cut of it, and he made sure to stay under, so on and so forth, all that stuff. But one of the fallouts from that was an interesting proposal, one that I hadn't really considered, and one that I kind of understand. I've talked at length on this show here about how dangerous gambling is for the sport industry, how it kind of has become, it's an integral part of it at this point. And it is important. It is important to have some kind of relationship with the sports books, but the how deep the claws are getting into the game is kind of worrying to me. But you take a look at prop betting, and that's going to be the easiest thing for these players to, cook, take advantage of. And colleges wanted to get ahead of that, They want to ban prop bets on all college players. And is that really the end of the world? It's not like they're saying you're not allowed to bet on it. It's the easiest thing to corrupt, banning that in college sports. And I think that's a great idea. I really do. You have players in college that, quite frankly, are never gonna make the professional leagues, They're doing this for the love of the game, and maybe someone comes around and is like, hey, I will give you 50% of what I win if you make sure that I win. You make sure that I make some money, I will make sure you get some money. And it's a little deal. They're not going to get in too much trouble. They're not going to the next level, It's not legally against the rules. It's just against the rules of the sport. There's just so many ways that this could go wrong. And I see the other side of the argument. These people that are like, oh, but just it's against the rules. They can't gamble. They can't do this. They'll get punished. That's enough. Don't take this away from us. And to a certain extent, I get that. But in Louisiana, they passed a law saying, hey, we are going to ban all prop bets on college athletics. And I think it's worth a shot to see how it goes. It's good to get ahead of this. It really is. I'm sure that the sports books, their lobbyists, are going to try and fight this because they want to make money. But having some kind of protection against these sports books, especially when it comes to college, that's where it always has been college sports has always been like the Wild West of sports. You know, it's a little crazy, a little wild. All these I won't say illegal, I won't say against the rules, but I guess underhanded things are going on in college sports. And that's not to say that they don't happen in the pros, but when it comes to the pros, that's like these people's careers, you know? And when it comes to college, 90% of those guys, 99% of those guys aren't making it to the next level, you know? So there's a little more room for shenanigans in college. It's worth a shot. I really would love to see how this affects the gambling industry, because I don't think it would that much. You know, you're not the reason that they caught a guy like Jonte Porter is because too much money was being put on this prop bet. I don't think there's that much money on collegiate prop bets. You know, maybe there are for big games, you know, but I don't think over the course of a year it's gonna be that big of a deal for these sports books to, you know, not have prop bets on college sports. Makes it a little more simple, a little safer, a little more integrity in the game. And it just kind of avoids the situation that Jonte Porter finds himself and the Raptors and the NBA in as a whole. It just kind of avoids that whole situation. So I'm a big fan of this. I know there's ups and downs. I know there are. But when it comes to the gambling industry, the sports betting industry, I'm always of the mindset better safe than sorry. You know, only bad things can happen from not regulating it. And you know, the best thing that happens from not regulating it is it stays the same as it is, you know? Where there's issues that pop up every once in a while, but other than that, it's not really an issue. But if you keep it relatively unregulated, then some shady stuff's going to happen. Because that's just how gambling industry works. But I'm in favor of this law. It's only in one state, so we'll see how it affects it. And obviously, there's tinkering to be done. I'm sure I didn't read the bill, so I'm sure there's things that might need to be fixed, might need to be changed about it. But I'm a supporter of at least trying this out. You know, giving it a little trial run. But anyway, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on anything we talked about today. Stefon Diggs trade, Joel Embiid, Victor Wembenyama, this new law, the prop betting ban. Anything, let me know in the comments. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, with the breaking news of the day in sports. I will see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit.